Morning, wild and crazy, beautiful things. How are you today? How you doing out there? I see that live chat is already crazy. So much already going on, and I love it. I love it very much. How are you today? Good morning, one and all. Grand risings all, says Tan Tan Can. How are you today? Oh, hello. How are you doing? Where did that come from? Oh, there you go. There you go. Hello, all. I've just read all Craig's jokes. Day off today, methinks. Ha. Good morning, Julie, to you. Hello, Peter. How are you all? How's Crazy Bunny? And how's both of our mods? How's Shin? Where is Shin? Is she there? I'm sure she is. Hello, Esoteric Knight says, good day, pirates. Good day to you all. Happy Friday, gang, says Jenny. And Pink Diamond is grand rising. And Marie, did I see you say you put your heating on? I did. I put the heating on earlier. I did. My little fingers were all cold. Good morning, Joanne from Australia. Wait, Joanne, are you just going into spring now and summertime? We're all envious of you already because honestly, I just feel so chilly. And John is from Coventry. Good morning. Hello from Preston, says Sharon. Is it absolutely chucking down where you are? Because it is here. And thank you, Tara. Absolutely. Morning, Peeps. Remember to hit the button and help Sonia. Love to Sonia and Mods. Thank you, Tara. We really appreciate that. Beautiful day, all. And Anne Marie, good morning to you as well. How are you all, you fantastic, amazing people? Hello, thank you, and welcome. I want to start by saying I love you. Yes, I do. At 1 minute past 9 British summertime on Friday, 27th of September, this is Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests, and I love you. Thank you all for making our show what it is. Show on show, we are on the grow. And can I just say, all contributions to Wake Up matter, whether it's liking, sharing, subscribing, whether that's guest suggestions or being a guest, or emails that inspire me, or someone in the live chat, or our gorgeous mods, or the great and good who fund me to enable me to do what I do and enable me to buy this studio equipment, including this camera that I'm looking at you through right now. And that includes my dear patrons at Patreon and others who have very generously donated to this cause. And thank you for being here with me through some very funky, choppy waters at times. And when people write to me, as they do, and say they're so sorry they can't financially donate, I say no biggie. Somehow we always find a way. Yes, we do, because we all contribute something different to the mix. We get in where we can, right? That's all that matters, right? The big whole comes together one way or another. So thank you all. We are growing and it feels so good. Oh, yes, it does. Now, I do accept the world looks precarious. Yes, it does. And we could be heading into some tricky waters. And I want to be able to steer my way through that with you all in a rational, non-sensational manner. Too many people monetize overreaction to an issue. They choose to go instantly to the most extreme end of the scale that is being suggested, but that is not always how life pans out. But there is money, likes, and subscribes in fear porn, but I'm not buying into it. So today on Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests, we'll be reviewing the Labour conference this week with all of its greedy, cheap, grasping, grubby, compromised behaviour. Plus, we'll be looking at the UN Summit of the Future Pact. Remember, we were discussing the UN Summit with Jeff Peel on Monday, and we're going to be looking today at the Pact. And what are we really looking at here? And is it bad, as some people say? Plus, we'll be joined by human rights advocate Rada Sterling. She'll be joining us after her latest heroic success to get people safely out of Dubai. And Julian Assange will be doing his first official testimony since his release. That will be coming next week. And the absolutely reprehensible Chris Whitty, who led the C-19 charge in the UK, was at the COVID inquiry telling us how incredibly harrowing C-19 was for NHS staff. It must have been harrowing deciding which Jackson 5 hit you were going to do a TikTok to, right? I think during C-19, that was when well, that was when trust and faith in NHS staff, certainly in the UK, plummeted. I reckon to an all-time low. Yes, I do. Plus, we'll be updating the Diddy story and so much more. And finally, at the end of the show, we'll be finding meaning in the mundane and why this is so much more than just a common or garden tater, right? And I'd like to say hello, Lorraine. Thank you for sending me a glorious image of where you are watching Wake Up. Remember, I said, please send me images of where you're watching Wake Up. And Lorraine has clearly just trying to make us all jealous. She took a picture from their family apartment in Tenerife, which my parents bought back in 1980. She's now back in dear old Blighty, but that was where the balcony of her Tenerife apartment was where she was listening to Wake Up last week. And I'm sorry I can't show it. I promise next week I'm going to get back on to sorting out the production of this show. But there's been so much going on. Please bear with me because I do put content before production because I think that's the right way round. Yes, I do. And Bernadette also said, I've been ill in bed for a week with awful fever sweats. Excuse me, people. Shivers, cough, cold, lack of sleep, the lot, but keeping spirits high with my little girl. And she's a cute little girl. She's a sweet little pussycat. And that is where Lorraine and Bernadette are watching Wake Up with Sonia Poulton. Where are you watching Wake Up with Sonia Poulton? How are you in the chat this morning, you beautiful people? Talk to me. Let's have a look, see what you're doing. Oh, Stephen, is it pouring with rain? It is here too. What's happening, Kath? Everything all right with you? And there's like a little family that goes on in our chat now. And if you're new to the chat, you will be made very, very welcome. We are family. Let me have a little drink. Let me have a little slurp. The changing of the seasons often kind of impacts me in terms of my body feels the need to have a darn good clear out. As you can see, I'm in a slightly different position today just because I'm in a clear out mood. I have no idea where I want to position us next, but that's the kind of mood I'm in right now. Logan is in northern New South Wales in Australia, and it's rainy and cold relatively. And it's cool in Sydney, says Maria. And what else is going on? Going to work and it's so cold. Summer is over and I hate it, says Diamond. Lovely evening in Australia here, says Eamon. We got some glorious Aussie viewers. I love it. I love it so much. So, how have you all been this week? It's been hectic, hasn't it? So, they're all in New York, the heads of state. They're all in New York, whining and dining each other. There's Starmer, there's Trump, there's Biden, there's Zelensky, all manner of world leaders for the UN General Assembly. We're told that Sir Keir Starmer had a 2-hour dinner meeting with Donald Trump. Starmer and Foreign Secretary David Lammy met with the former president on Thursday night before flying back to the UK. Starmer, oh, I can't even bear to mention his name these days, used his address to the Assembly to say that the UK is returning to responsible global leadership. See, here's the thing, is that those words, global leadership, give me the chills. They give me the chills, especially when they are uttered out of the mouth of an absolute trilateral globalist such as Keir Starmer. And the key points of his visit, of Starmer's visit, was to meet Donald Trump in New York. So presumably they are assuming Trump may well win. And then Starmer, as I say, promised global leadership. And then Starmer is to hold post-Brexit reset talks. All these resets that are going on without us, we're not having it. And then what is great, of course, at the moment is that pensioners have now started a legal battle over the government regarding the winter fuel payment cuts. More of that shortly in the news review. And what else has been going on this week? Well, you know, the story of Madeleine McCann matters to me. It matters to me because it is such a huge cover up. It's so substantial and we've all become part of that lie, right? and not by choice. We've all become part of that lie because that has become the official narrative. So this week, in a German court, we had the German patsy, Christian Bruckner, being offered up. Apparently, he had confessed to abducting a girl from Algarve apartment, according to a former prison or a cellmate of his. Speaking in front of a German regional court where Bruckner is standing trial for unrelated sex crimes. And it's really important, this, because Christian Bruckner is not on trial for the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, but they are so determined to shoehorn Madeleine's disappearance onto this man. Now, don't get me wrong, Christian Bruckner, to all intents and purposes, is utterly disgusting, vile, reprehensible, and I wouldn't have him anywhere near child, adult, or animal, but he's not responsible for the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. And it's absolutely obscene that they keep insisting he is and trying to, as I say, shoehorn this. So basically, his cellmate had said, let me find the quote here. He told me that in Portugal, that he had stolen there. He was in a region where there are hotels and rich people live. This is Codin. This is Laurencio Codin, who was behind bars for child offences. So, no great geezer, this one, right? And Codin Laurencio went on to say, he said there was somewhere with an open window. He told me this. He was looking for money. He said he didn't find any money, but found a kid and took the child. He said that 2 hours later, there were police and dogs all over the place. So he then went away out of the area. I'm just saying what he told me. He told me that a person was with him who he had an argument with. Allegedly, it was his woman. He said he took the child in Portugal in his car. And in that time, when the police and dogs were at the house, he drove away and he was gone. Excuse me. He asked me if the DNA from a child can be found as evidence, and I answered yes. I don't believe that is in reference to Madeleine McCann. I wouldn't put it past Christian Bruckner to have done any of those things, but I don't believe for a second it was in reference to Madeleine McCann, not least because what window was open then? I mean, you know, what we do know about the window regarding the bedroom where Madeleine McCann was said to have been taken from is the bedroom window had been cleaned that morning. And the only fingerprints that were actually found on it after the disappearance of Madeleine McCann was her mum, Kate McCann. Having been to the scene of crime twice and stood outside that window, I can confidently assure you that I don't believe for a second in the small window in which they claimed that Madeleine was taken, that a man or anybody, in fact, would have gotten out of that window without anybody seeing them or with ease. Absolute nonsense. Bruckner is currently serving a 7-year jail term for the 2005 rape of American pensioner Diane Menkes. He's standing trial at the district court for unconnected sex crimes, as I say. And we shall see what goes on. But they are absolutely determined, as I say, to make Madeleine McCann Bruckner's crime, which is wrong. Is wrong. Because, as I say, not for a second do I believe that he did it. And I'd like to point out a tweet that Craig Campbell, who's in our comments today, actually made. And he said, Madeleine McCann is trending once again, but for all the wrong reasons. Can you imagine if there was 17 cadaver and blood dog alerts regarding Christian Bruckner? If his fingerprint was the only one located on the window, if he had given official police statements and changed them, if 15 out of 19 of her DNA markers were located in his car boot, if he refused to answer 48 questions, and if he laughed with paedophile Freud while the dogs were searching in 2007. Truth will out, says Craig. And of course, all those things apply to Kate and Gerry McCann. But what it's like the news, the legacy media and German police and even British police to a certain degree, they were so determined to make this about Christian Bruckner that it is absolutely immaterial what evidence they have. But they do have plenty of evidence regarding the fact that Madeleine McCann was not abducted. She was not abducted, people. And that is just a fact. And things are piling up for P. Diddy, aren't they? Sean Puffy Coombs. See, you can only run an empire by force for so long before it starts to unravel, and those who have been your victims get to feast on your rotting carcass. A further lawsuit has been launched this week regarding P. Diddy, and it's ugly. And on top of that, Shine is speaking. Shine being the only person who was in prison for the 1999 December shooting in a New York nightclub, where Puffy was there with Shine and Puffy's girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez. Shine had gone out for the night with his record label boss, as I say, Puff Daddy, with the aim of celebrating his upcoming album. He ended up with a criminal record and in prison. And the thing is, I told you trouble and dark things follow P. Diddy. That is the reality. But Shine is speaking, and it's likely the chickens are going to come home to roost right now. Diddy's lawyer, by the way, has confirmed that Diddy is prepared to testify in court, potentially exposing other high profile figures in an effort to reduce his sentence. People like Sean Combs will squeal like a pig to protect their own hide. Yes, he will. And his lawyer said, I don't know that I could keep him off the stand. I think he is very eager to tell his story, and I think he will tell every part of his story. Diddy, of course, has pleaded not guilty to all three charges and has been denied bail several times, despite managing to put up a $50 million bail, which included his property and his mum's property. And many people have been pointing out that this term freak off that Sean Combs uses to describe what was taking place is not a freak off. It's not. It's a crime scene, isn't it? Right? It's trafficking. It's potentially children involved, potentially SRA. It's potentially a lot of other things, but freak off makes it sound all fun, doesn't it? But there's so much more to it. And Diddy's contacts better be careful. They need to be looking. They need to be looking sharpish. As one example, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, who gave Combs the keys to New York only last week, of which they've now been taken back. Well, Eric Adams himself has now been indicted on allegations of bribery and corruption regarding the Turkish government. Insane. And this is a month-long corruption probe. It engulfed New York City Hall, prompted a string of resignations. And Eric Adams is really a pretty much like well, he actually described himself, didn't he? He was when he was handing the keys to Sean Combs. Sean Combs' company obviously is called Bad Boy. And they were all joking about how Sean Combs is kind of like the bad boy of the music industry and Eric Adams is the bad boy of politics. Yeah, well, look what happens with bad boys. You've both been indicted right now, right? Not looking that sweet, is it? And how many high profile friends are currently looking the other way? It's like nobody wants to admit now that they went to Diddy's white parties, but many of them did. I mean, many of them did. LeBron James famously said, ain't no party like a Diddy party. No, we've heard that. And there was Paris Hilton, of course. Jennifer Lopez, been to several of them when she was going out with him. Howard Stern, Kelly Osbourne, Aretha Franklin, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson when they were still together, Kim Kardashian. It kind of goes on and on and on. An awful lot of very famous people were at those parties. And what we are hearing is that there were layers to the party. There were like different inner sanctums that you could access, depending, presumably, on how kind of perverted and predatory you were. So, and I've seen more pictures from those parties, and there's like naked women, and Diddy and others are eating fruit of these women, and you have to wonder how much are these people being trafficked, and how much were they prepared to do it to be at a party full of very famous people, because that does happen. I'm not victim blaming here, but we've all been young. We've all done dumb things, right? And I'm just saying, I'm sure some of those people were young and dumb, and they were easy to be manipulated. They really were. And so, as I say, I'm not victim shaming anybody, but perhaps it now comes to a point where people have to start realizing they have to also be responsible for their own actions to a certain degree. You would never have found me doing stuff like this at all, right? And because I was absolutely aware that when I was a music journalist, I was also surrounded by very predatory people. And I was young as a music journalist, throughout my 20s for a start. And so you have to be careful. But again, no victim shaming here, but just some of those images make me think how much of a participant were these people? And now they want to be paid for it. So questions, questions, questions. And no doubt this is the kind of angle that Diddy's representatives will also be taking, right? And, I've seen things like, I mean, women like a tangle of limbs in the swimming pools as Diddy is just like pouring champagne over them, and everybody appears to be having a great time. But who can ever tell, really? But a former music industry insider, Tom Swoop, so he wrote a memoir about surviving Diddy's white parties. Actually, no, it's not. He hasn't written a memoir. He does videos. That's what he does. So he makes videos about surviving P Diddy's parties, and he talks about how the parties were separated into tiers of access. That there was a general admission, then a series of tiers, ending with entrance to the inner sanctum, where the real partying apparently went on and allegedly included sexually humiliating male and female guests on the promise of record deals or money. It's horrible, ugly, ugly stuff. Ugly stuff. And when Diddy was speaking to Oprah, ooh, I really can't bear that woman, to Oprah in 2006, he told her that the intention behind the first white party was to integrate hip hop into the echelons of the mega rich to find an intersection of both worlds. He said, I wanted to strip away everyone's image and put us all in the same color and on the same level. Except you weren't on the same level because there's a whole load of people apparently who were being trafficked and abused. They are hardly on the same level, right? I've got a picture in front of me of Ashton Kutcher swinging from a rope, like in a fun way, at one of the white parties. And is that Nelly behind him? I could be wrong there. And I've got another list of people at the white parties, and some of these are quite sad, including Aaliyah, who died in very weird circumstances. Aaliyah was a young girl married to R. Kelly, underage, had to have it annulled. And she was a young girl who was passed around by men in the music industry. That is what happened, very, very sadly so. And that was enabled by those around her. So this picture I've got in front of me is Kimora Lee Simmons and Russell Simmons, who's also in the firing line. And the funny thing is, Russell Simmons used to run Def Jam with Leo Cohen, and I remember I've interviewed Russell several times, got on with him like a house on fire. But of course, he's now in the firing line, and people say that he's got his own issues to answer to, just same way as P Diddy. But I went to his apartment as well on my own to interview him. Now it could just none of them did anything untoward to me, neither Diddy or Russell Simmons. That could just be that they didn't find me attractive, because I think a lot of the girls that they find attractive are either black or light skinned. And it could just be that they didn't find me attractive, but it also could be that I carried such an air about me. It was like, don't even try it. Do not even try it. And I went in and I was professional as a journalist and I did my job. And both of them, in my experience, were kind of the height of courtesy and chivalry and niceness to me. But people always say that, don't they, about abusers? So who can ever tell? And isn't it annoying that in the last week, Combs's music streams have sold more than in recent times? And increasing streaming numbers often follows controversy. R. Kelly's streaming numbers increased after surviving R. Kelly. And it is just annoying. It really is so annoying that these people continue to make so much money off of truly foul behavior. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So we will shortly be joined by our first guest. What are your thoughts out there in the comments, you beautiful people? I was not packing, but they're all attracted to the hedonistic lifestyle, says Shug. Sonia, you're a squeal. Absolutely. And Aaron Carter, the Carters, what a absolute mess going on there, Looney. Didn't something happen to their sister as well? Because Aaron Carter died, right? There's something weird there. I do need to look into that more. Um, Amy, you're right. But Sonia, what could you have done had you been drugged? You're absolutely right. And that's why I'm not victim shaming, Amy. I'm just wondering, first of all, stop going to these places. No matter how much you may want to get into the music or entertainment industry, you have to protect yourself because these people are predators. And so that's really what I'm saying, Amy. But you're absolutely right. And the thing is, Amy, I have to say, I don't think that that was baby oil in those bottles. Over 1,500 bottles of baby oil. I don't think it was just baby oil. Amy, I think that actually what you're referring to there, I think in those bottles was highly likely stuff that drugged people, right? So I don't know. And we shall see. Did he, Charlotte? Did Nick Carter get accused of rape? Um, Shug, I do believe that if you have a strong character, they will leave you alone. They will because they know it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And yeah, Blue Nomad, GHB in those bottles. I think that is highly likely, says Soul Sound. Yes, I do. Um, yeah, Stella, there is no doubt that Diddy has videos on hundreds of celebs, no doubt at all. And isn't it interesting that the New York mayor is indicted this week? So that's a week after Combs. That's just interesting, isn't it? And those two were thick as thieves. And Brett, you're absolutely right, starstruck and vulnerable. And that is the thing, is again, it is not attacking these people. It's saying, please protect yourself because these people will take advantage of you. They will do whatever they want to you because they believe that your desire to be famous is so great, you will do anything to achieve it. Um, there is a theory that baby oil was code for Chrome. Got you. Um, Prey in those vulnerable and weak, not great friends, family connection. Yeah, I agree, Shalini. I watched 4 hours of Jaguar yesterday at Soul Sound. I like her. Crazy Bunny, the problem is I do feel sometimes that she says stuff for impact. And we cannot rule out the fact that she's angry. She's angry that her career never ever took off in the way of a kind of Beyonce, for example. So she's also angry about that. Um, so I'm not entirely convinced by everything she says. But I do think there's probably some truth in what she says. But who knows? Contact. Oh, right. Okay. Got you. Melissa Schumann says in new court filing that another woman contacted her with a sexual assault claim against the Backstreet Boys singer after a documentary about Carter premiered in May. And yes, oh, that's nice. That's really nice, Kath. Sloan Bella's audience speaking highly of me. Very nice. Send them my love. Randy, are you feeling sick to your stomach? I know. People need to be protected. The problem is that it is my experience that a lot of people who gravitate towards being fame are already vulnerable. Something has already happened amiss in their childhood and when they're growing up, when they don't feel good enough or loved enough, and they just want, and that feeling of fame, you know what it's like. Some people, when they get a little bit of fame on social media and then they start to go crazy and convince themselves that they are huge superstars, well, they've got a taste of it. So imagine when you really have the real thing, like a Diddy, because believe me, what happens is all doors open to you. Right. Like given the keys to the city of New York as one perfect example, but it is amazing what fame does. And so people who come from very difficult backgrounds often gravitate towards fame because they believe that is where they're going to get what they need, that love and that appreciation and that adoration and all of that. And oftentimes isn't that at all, which is very sad. Blue Nomad said she didn't make it in the industry because she wouldn't do the dirty. That may be the case, Blue Nomad. That may absolutely be the case. I don't dispute that. And yeah, Sasha, they're looking for love and they sell themselves crone. And Silence says the downfall of the world is when people want to feel powerful. I saw a quote that said something like that. Yeah, want love. It is Shalini. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And as a music journalist, I saw it. And the thing is that we are seeing it, aren't we, over and over and over again. I mentioned, I think it was on the last show about when I watched this video of Diddy at the entrance to one of his parties, and these girls could not have been more than 15, and he was taking their mobile phones from them. And they should not have been there in the first place. God bless them. and it's just horrible. Yeah, I've talked about Brittany Murphy and her husband before, Emma. I will cover them again in the future because that was obviously very odd. They kind of died 6 months apart, right? It was supposed to be mold in the house. But yeah, there was Brittany's friend testified about how Brittany knew about certain things that were happening on the border to do with the US government. And lots of talk about MJ being thrown under the bus. And of course, dead men don't talk, said That's Life, but not as we know it. And that is what frustrates people so much when suddenly people are implicated when they're dead, because we want them to either have an opportunity to be able to fight the allegations or for us to be able to get justice for the people who've been abused. So, but yes, Sasha, these girls are served up to him. They are. Good morning, Kat. Randy can't find it in his heart to forgive these people. I hear you. Just before I bring in our next guest, can I just say this is really funny. I think this is really, really appropriate. This is Andy's 15 minutes of fame. It's actually soap, and it's based on when Andy Worrell said in future everybody's going to get 15 minutes of fame. I love that. I think that's fairly hilarious and on point. Right, you beautiful people. Let us welcome in our first guest and let's get reviewing, shall we? Let's get reviewing. That's what I say. Let's get reviewing. Can't believe the weather out there. I actually can't. It's like it is absolutely miserable. I have warm water. Here's Sarah Newlin. Good morning, Sarah.
Morning, Sonia. How are you?
Good, really good to have you with us. Excuse me, I just need a little bit of warm water. My
Go for
voice is
it.
already going.
No problem.
Mm. Sarah, of course, has been with us before. She's a writer. She does the blog Critically Thinking. And Sarah, let me ask you a question. Do you think of yourself as someone who has fairly representative views, or are you an outsider?
Um, well, I think I'm probably a bit of an outsider, unfortunately, Sonia, because yeah, I mean, this kind of, as you know, started my website during COVID because my views were so different to other people's. So yeah, so probably a bit of an outsider, unfortunately. But on certain issues, I'm sure there are a lot of people feeling the same now. So we're hoping more people coming along for the ride.
Absolutely. So obviously, let's tackle a few things. One, I think we have to tackle the Labour conference, and not because either you or I are major political supporters these days, not at all. But the bottom line is that is actually our Prime Minister. So I kind of think we probably need to discuss him and all the madness that has come out this week. And there's a whole
Yeah,
lot of madness that has come out this week.
isn't there?
Where do
Isn't
we
there?
even start? I
Oh,
mean, where
oh,
would you
Sonia.
like to start on what has been coming out this week
Oh God.
around
I
the
have to
Labour
start with
conference?
the absolute cringe fest of the DJ set by that what's his name? Anas I can't remember
Osawa.
his oh
When
gosh.
he was
Yeah, did you
dancing with
see it?
Emily Thornberry.
Oh,
That
I couldn't it was hard to watch. It was so embarrassing. It was just so hard to watch. So
is
that I
very
mean
cringy. If you ever
so
seen
they
Michael Gove dance, by the way, it's
yes,
similar. It's on par.
I have. And isn't that awful? But I don't know if they do they think this makes them look,
Cool.
cool with the people or, it just doesn't. It does the absolute opposite, surely. But it also, I think, just proves that they don't give a toss, do they?
No, they
They're
don't.
laughing at us, really. It's look what we're doing, messing around. There's no serious politics going on here. This is all kind of pre-decided. It doesn't matter what the people think, they're just going to go ahead and do what they want, and they're all having a jolly good time while they do it, aren't they? So,
And
yeah,
some
it's a
admitted they're
disgrace.
all mates as well, even in opposition, right? So
Yeah,
he actually, I think, admitted that this week. So,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
how they all get on so well.
exactly, exactly. I mean, we knew that, you've seen the whole prime minister questions. If you ever watch it, it's like a joke, isn't it? It's like a big boys club, and I just think it's such a farce. I can't believe anybody can take it seriously. I really can't.
What
And as you
about
say, that's our prime minister. I mean, if that's all we've got to offer, what a sad state of affairs.
What about all of the stuff that's been coming out regarding this Lord Arley? Now, it's not unusual for politicians to receive these bribes, bungs. I know they're supposed to be gifts, and
Mm.
but nobody gives something for nothing,
Well,
right?
I think
So, right?
exactly that, Sonia. And I think that's the point a lot of people are missing. This isn't about being jealous that they get, I mean, Taylor Swift. tickets or whatever. No one cares. It's the fact that what are they getting in return for that? Because nobody's giving these kind of really expensive gifts for nothing, are they? Of course not. Why would they? So yeah, I think that's what people need to focus on is well, what was he getting in return for the use of a 10 million pound apartment? So the boy could do his GCSEs. I mean, their excuses are
Oh,
laughable, aren't they?
absolutely excruciating. But the thing is
Mm,
also the deception because it was from Lord Arley's apartment where
yeah,
Starmer did his work from home address during C19, right?
yeah.
And what was deceptive was behind him, he'd put up all like family photos and everything. That was designed to mislead, wasn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the fact that he did that just is exactly it goes to his character as just an absolute easy liar. He lies so easily. And yeah, it was very deceptive. And while they're telling us one thing, they're doing completely the opposite. And I mean, we knew that. People like you and I knew that during COVID anyway, Sonia, didn't we? That it was all a big nonsense. But lots of people did curtail their lives and live this kind of very restricted lives. And all the time, they were just going about doing whatever they pleased. And while he's having a go at for Partygate, but he was staying somewhere that wasn't his home. So it just proves that it's all one big boys club and we're not in it. And that's the point, isn't it, really?
It really is. And the thing, so Wes Streeting, obviously, who's
Mm.
on in the cabinet, he said that people giving big money to political parties are the same as people who donate to animal charities. Do you reckon?
No, let's be honest. That is, donating to save homeless dogs or something is a proper altruistic thing because these poor animals need your help. These poor politicians don't need anybody's help. They're on healthy salaries, usually with two homes. It's not the same thing at all. And they're not donating to the cause, are they? This is all
No.
personal stuff these people are getting. It's benefits and perks for themselves. This is nothing to do with politics or the party itself. No, that's an absolute load of
And
bull.
what
Yeah,
about that thing about the hostages that became sausages? Do you think that
hostages.
was, some people believe that was staged, you know? What
Do
do
you know
you
what?
think?
I think I have to say I kind of agree with that because it's not a word that easily gets,
Weird.
hostage and sausage. They're not that close,
No, no.
and the way he did it, as a lot of people have pointed out, it was it rolled very easily. It wasn't like he was stammering or stuttering or. So I think it may well have been just for what purposes. I mean, there's various theories going around, but yeah, I mean, we all know that. Well, we know he's a puppet, isn't he, for all these globalist people that want one world governments. So it doesn't matter what he does or says. But was it a test to make him look stupid? Was it a humiliation ritual? Who knows? But
Do you know what
yeah,
some people suggested was, that how they it was really useful to have Boris look like a buffoon when he was anything
yes,
but that similar kind of thing as well, because Keir Starmer comes over as a bit kind of straight-laced, a bit
yeah.
like an accountant, and some people suggested to me it was to make him look human.
I mean that's very possible, isn't it? Who knows with these globalist things that
They're
go
so
on.
manipulative, they'll do
So
this kind of stuff.
manipulative. Exactly. And we'll probably never know the truth behind it. But I cannot really imagine that it wasn't deliberate because like as I say, it's not a word that you would easily mess up on, is it?
No, it's
But what
really
I will
weird.
say, it's created some brilliant memes. So we've had great fun,
Yes,
you know.
yes.
So
I like the
yeah,
ones with Prince with Charles,
yeah,
because
with
Charles
his
obviously
fingers.
has the original sausage fingers, doesn't he? But where I come from like a proper working class background. We have a name for the type of men who allow strange men to buy clothes for their wives, right?
Yes,
And and fund
absolutely.
apartments for their children while they're having GCSEs. As
Yeah.
strong working class backgrounds, we do all that stuff ourselves.
Yes, quite absolutely. But I think the thing with that, Sonia, that really riled a lot of people, rightly so, because, you know, so many just normal people. What about people living in high-rise blocks whose kids had to prepare for their
Right,
GCSEs? They don't
right.
get a million what was it, £10 million apartment in the middle of Covent
18,
Garden.
I think. I think it's
18
an
million,
18 million.
18
And I
million.
think Starmer has lied about that as well, because he reckons it only would have cost
20
£20,000.
grand, that's
Well, that
right.
is not accurate when you look at the cost of the apartment and how
Yeah,
much other properties in that block are going for, which I
yeah.
actually have the figure for somewhere, which I'm sure I'll find. But point is, and it's not beyond him to lie, is it? I mean, he comes
This is
over
the
as a very
thing.
disingenuous individual to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they all are, aren't they? But he is particularly the way it just so easily rolls off him, and I've heard various things that have come out that he's lied about. I mean, he's flip-flopped on all his policies. He seems
Yeah.
to not worry about that or feel ashamed about it. But I think that to me, Sonia, that just proves what we say, that this is all coming from above. He'll do anything they tell
Yeah.
him to do. It
Yeah.
just he doesn't care because he's getting what he needs and he's looking after number one, which is, what they're all doing, really. So yeah,
This
it's quite
week he's Sorry, Sarah. This week he's been on a major global mission, though, hasn't he? Because he's obviously been at the
yes.
UN assembly as well. But also, a major feature of his speech was about how the state will take back control of
I
people's lives.
I
What?
just couldn't
Can
believe
you get your head
the
around that?
phrasing. I mean, what do they think? They're sort of pushing it in our faces now, aren't they? That's so blatant now. They're not even hiding it. But the frightening thing is that a lot of people don't pick up on that language and find that terrifying.
Exactly.
That's really scary to me. I think people are so conditioned to it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I found that so terrifying, that phrase. I just thought, God, that's really North Korea, isn't it? That's really kind of,
Yeah.
we will look after
But
you.
in the
We
UK
will.
now, yeah, it is
Yeah,
absolutely. But they've been doing it really for a long time. The fact is, the state want to be able to, kind of manage us from cradle to grave. That's what they
exactly.
want to be able to do. And so I think that brings us perfectly into the whole kind of UN Future Summit.
Mm,
And I've been looking at the pact for the future. I want to thank you, first of all, lovely viewers. I've actually lost count of how many of you sent me that pact because you were so horrified. We covered it on Monday with Jeff Peel, and that was then just while the summit was actually happening at that moment in time. And I think to a certain degree, and I do agree with Jeff as well, because I think sometimes when we see these things, it's so easy for us to overreact and automatically assume we're all going to be locked and trapped and there's nothing we can do. Have you read through the pack, Sarah? What are your thoughts?
I've had a brief look through it, Sonia. I mean, part of me thinks, it's another one of these things, isn't it? As you say, there's so many of these coming out at
Yes.
various intervals. And then I do wonder, is there an element that, yes, they want us to react like that, so that then when things don't quite go as badly as we predict, people say, "Oh, look at the conspiracy theorists again," But gradually, drip, drip. I think with each one, okay, the whole thing might not get implemented, but it's a drip, drip effect, isn't it? And they're all,
Exactly.
yeah, and they're precursors to little things that then become bigger things. 15-minute cities. That's all kind of going ahead now, and people said that wouldn't happen, but it's happening. And pay per mile, and all these things that keep people controlled, really. I think that, and so I do think this one is probably another one of those. So some parts of it will end up being implemented, probably not the entirety of it, but yeah, it's frightening. I think it's people need to really read and digest it and think what that could mean for us. It's, and as I say, silly things like the things he's trying to do with closing pubs early. I know it's not directly related to this, but it's the 5 points, I think, that the pact says that it's going to look at. Obviously, one is blooming climate and that nonsense, and health and global health and that kind of thing. And I think all of those things, when you take them to their core, they're things that policies like the closing the pubs early, they're just a step further to controlling you. And they might use these pacts to say, well, it's because we're looking after global health, but it's nothing of the kind. It's to stop people doing what they want to do when they want to do it, and talking with other people. It's all about controlling us and keeping us apart from other people. Sorry, I've gone off on a
No,
total
no, no,
rant
you're
because I
right. I
find
mean,
these. totally frightening, you
It
know.
is totally frightening. So I've read through it, and one of the sections that actually concerns me probably the most is transforming global governance,
Yes.
because that's the whole thing that you're just talking about right there, right? And
Yeah.
the thing is, it's done in such generalized terms. But of course, we cannot forget that we were all whipped up into great fear to do with the WHO Treaty as well.
Mm,
And so we have
mm,
to be careful because
exactly.
to a degree, I think they play us. Right. I think
Yeah.
they play us. They want us to be full of fear. And they also kind of use us to see how we react to certain points and what they can push at this moment in time. I think most of it happens by stealth. But this transforming global governance does concern me. So you
Mm,
have things like we will reform the Security Council, recognizing the urgent need to make it more representative. We will transform global governance and reinvigorate the multilateral system to tackle the challenges and seize the opportunities of today and tomorrow. But what does that actually
well,
mean?
this is the thing. It's quite loose
It
in a
is.
lot
And
of
that's
ways.
where I
And
find it scary though, because that's when
yeah,
it can become all encompassing,
well, this
can't
is the
it?
thing. You need parameters, but they all of this new talk is all worded very loosely, isn't it? I think that's one of the most terrifying things about it is if you don't know, it's up to the person then to interpret what that means. I mean, it's not going to be up to us to interpret what it means, is it? It's going to be up to them, and they'll
No.
say, well, this is all covered by this pact. And yeah, I think that's where, as you say, people really need to read it and think about how that could be used against you. Yeah, it's a really
It's all
terrifying.
there, isn't it? We
It
will
is.
strengthen the economic and social council to accelerate sustainable development. Well, that's all to do with 2030.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
there's a lot of
And
it.
who decides what is sustainable development, Sonia? I
And
mean,
that is
again,
the
there's
thing.
no parameters on it, is there? There's no actual
Right.
descriptive. It's just telling you. And so if they decide that sustainable governments means sorry, sustainable stuff means that we can't eat meat, then we won't eat meat. They're the ones deciding all this and keeping it nice and loose so they can cover any eventuality by it. Yeah, it's frightening, really frightening.
It is frightening. Let me look at some of these comments, right? Because this is just so KB thinks that this is a distraction,
Mm,
right? That this is being used as a distraction. It could well be because while they're
could be.
talking in all these fabulous generalized terms about, accelerating
Mm,
financial architecture and accelerating reform of the international financial architecture to mobilize additional financing for the sustainable development goals. While they're talking about all of that in highly generalized terms, what else are they
are
actually
they?
putting into place? Because
Yeah.
you don't get heads of state all meeting in the same place at the same time for no good reason, right?
No, absolutely right. Yeah, and you do wonder what, for all their platforming and speeches that are televised, there'll be thousands, hundreds of thousands of conversations going on behind the
That
scenes that
we have no
that we
clue
won't
about.
know, and they'll be no doubt, making deals with each other and deciding who's going to do what next. And yeah, again, it's one big club, and it's only for them and not for us. So,
And we must
yeah.
also remember that we do have our sovereignty, that it is not
Mm,
so easy to override as some people think it is. And
yeah.
so that plays a part in this as well, because obviously the whole point about these globalist pacts is to completely override your own national sovereignty. Well, that's
Mm,
not that easy to do, actually,
no,
turns out. And so we have
no.
to remember that as well, because I think we give away power when we allow, when these things emerge. And I've seen a pile of video this week where people are making horrifying videos about it, about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think that helps anybody.
No, I agree with you. I think, we have to be level-headed about discussing it. But I think the point is making people realize that it's not as transparent as they think it is. Just because they publish a
Yes.
big document, that doesn't mean
Yes.
they're being transparent. So it's just about making people aware of what could be the potential. But I agree with you in making massive doom and gloom videos is not helpful, because I think that also feeds into the fact that anybody with a view like ours, anybody who's questioning anything, is automatically a conspiracy theorist, which, that term is just so old now, isn't it? But it just, I really think that paints anybody questioning things, in a bad light then. So I think, yeah, we need reasonable and like reasoned discussion on it, and to open that discussion and say, well, and ask them to hold them to account and say, well, what does that mean? We need people who have a voice to stand up and ask, well, what does that actually mean? I don't know who those people would be. You'd hope that there'd be some decent MPs that might pick it to pieces a bit, but is that a big ask that there might be some decent MPs? I don't know.
Well, it's a
Um,
massive ask, isn't it? Soul
yeah,
Sound said we should remind humanity of our beauty and our power. Must remember our own power. I
yeah,
think it's so easy. I agree with Broadbox here, describes it as financed fear mongering. I think it is so
mm,
easy to give away our power,
yeah.
excuse me,
Well,
to
this is
these
the thing, isn't it?
people.
I mean, during COVID, that was the whole point we made then. If if you didn't agree with lockdowns, then and you went out more than you were allowed, that was your own kind of version of that. I absolutely would not give them that power. I went out whenever I liked. I took my daughter out whenever I liked.
Good,
Saw whoever I
good.
liked because you can't. It's up to you not to give them that power, as you say, Sonia. I mean, there's some of it we wouldn't be able to control, obviously, which is where it gets a little bit terrifying. But I agree. I think we are our own sovereign beings, and it's up to us to continue in that light, really.
I think some of these comments are great. Ian says networks of informers on those eating real meat. I mean, you can see it, can't you? Because they were snitching, weren't they,
Yeah.
during C-19? Neighbors
Oh,
that were, as you said, literally, it was just awful. People were
yeah.
snitching on each other. And I think, that thing where they say, if you wonder how you would have reacted during whatever,
Yeah.
Nazi wartime, Nazi Germany, now you know. Well, I know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, Sarah, and
Absolutely.
we also know how people who claim to have, kind of be independent voices, how they reacted. And we also know
Yes,
how the media
absolutely.
reacted. Do you think we're going to
Exactly.
get another one? Do you think this is going to happen all again?
Gosh, I mean that's the big question, isn't it? I do get a little bit, a little bit wary when I hear Bill Gates saying things like that. Oh, there will be another one. Well, he says it with such certainty,
I mean,
doesn't
like he's
he?
got a diary entry down for it,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, this is how it feels, doesn't it? But I like to think that there are enough people. I know there are still some very compliant people, but I like to think there's so many more people now who wouldn't comply and would just say, "Oh, bugger that. I'm going to go out." And maybe I mean pub owners seem to have I've seen a lot of pub owners say they wouldn't close again. Whether they would actually hold to that, I don't know. It would be difficult, but the more people that don't comply, the harder it is for them to try and implement it, isn't it? Because they can't arrest us all. If there's hundreds of thousands of people just ignoring the diktats, then they can't go and arrest us all and throw us all in jail, can they? So if they do, I don't know is the answer whether they will have another one. Um, it depends on their whim, I suppose. But perhaps they're testing. Perhaps a lot of this is testing to see how many would
I
comply.
wonder. I wonder. It feels a
It's
bit like a
interesting.
kind of precursor, doesn't it,
Yeah,
to
it
something as
does.
well? I
It
wonder.
does.
Yeah, well, interesting. We'll keep an eye on it anyway. Sarah, thank
Yeah,
you for
for sure.
joining us this morning. Lovely
Oh,
to
it's been
have you
great to
with
talk to
us.
you. Yeah,
Always
lovely
good
to
to
talk to
talk to you.
you.
Everybody, it is the lovely Sarah Newlin. Have a good weekend, Sarah. Take
You
good
too.
care of
You too,
yourself.
Sonia. Take care.
See you soon. Yes, I think people, we have to be incredibly careful, don't we, not to allow them to fearmonger us to death, because that's horrible. Right, let me move on. Police are appealing for any potential victim survivors of alleged sexual abuse by Mohammed Al Fayed, former owner of Harrods. Some people believe that he was the handler of Princess Diana. Of course, it was in his care that Princess Diana was when she died in Paris in 1997, at the end of August in 1997. Mohammed Al Fayed died last year. We've had a rash of people come forward. There's been a BBC documentary. The Metropolitan Police have said in a statement that they must ensure every victim survivor has the confidence to speak to the force about the former Harrods owner. Well, we had Jo Britton on last week, and Jo Britton recounted the story of how she was sent to Mohammed Al Fayed at his home in Oxted. And it was under the kind of premise that Jo had been in private education and she had this beautiful cut glass English voice. And it was under this kind of basis that Mohammed Al Fayed wanted his children to sound like Jo, and they were contemplating having her as a nanny. But Jo does not remember what happened. She was potentially drugged while she was there. We've now heard that that is part of the ammo of Mohammed Al Fayed. And here's what's annoying is Jo reported to the Metropolitan Police twice, at least twice. I think the first time was in 2017. And now, because there's been a documentary about it, the police are suddenly saying, oh, come forward. We want to hear from you. The police should not. I mean, it's just ridiculous. We've seen this repeatedly, haven't we? You know, whether it's the post office scandal or whatever, the police should not be waiting on a media expose to start making arrests, or at least, you know, have people in for investigation and interview. But it's just, it literally all feels a bit too little too late, doesn't it? And on Tuesday, BBC Scotland contacted me, the Kay Adams show. Kay Adams, I think she's still kind of is one of the leads on Loose Women on ITV. Well, they contacted me and they wanted me to go on the show to talk about Mohammed Al Fayed. Well, as everybody knows around here, I'm now turning down legacy media. And I just said, no, I'm too busy. I'm not interested, but I do know somebody who could do it. And I suggested Joe, and the booker was absolutely delighted. It's hard being a booker, especially when you have less than an hour to book someone for a prime slot. And so I said, let me get in touch with her. I got in touch with Joe. She said she was totally up for it. And they rang her. And they were, to all intents and purposes, interested in her going on. Half an hour or so later, I get Joe's message. They wanted her. Then they came back and said they didn't. What happened? What was it that happened? Joe is convinced it's because they checked her timeline and saw that she was also linking Mohammed Al Fayed to Satanism and SRA. And that is most definitely not a BBC line. They're not interested in exploring that to do with him. It was not part of their documentary last week. And it is not an avenue that really any legacy media are interested in exploring about any famous person. And whether that person is a known serial abuser and sociopath or not. And I know as a broadcaster, legacy media can be very specific about the small window they want to take you through. And that is what I suspect happened with Joe. What she was saying was not what they were interested in buying. They thought that I would be a safe bet because I'm a journalist. I could just have a good conversation with Kay and everything would be hunky-dory and tickety-boo, but they don't realise that I'm no longer playing their games. And this is really another reason why I absolutely love doing this YouTube show. Despite the various YouTube guidelines, which can be incredibly restricted, there is still more editorial freedom on here than I have enjoyed in years. Everyone has an agenda, even me. Mine is to make the world a better place, but that might be a bit lofty for some people. But some media agendas are more damaging. Some organisations seek to only uphold the rich and powerful and to tread on those less fortunate. Others have religious or political leanings. They have biases. And the other mainstream that I turned down this week was actually yesterday, Times Radio, Rupert Murdoch's Times Radio. I get a WhatsApp from them saying, oh, would you come on and talk about Madeleine McCann? No, I will not. And here's my middle finger to you. No, I will not. I loathe anything to do with Rupert Murdoch. I absolutely do. He's a disgusting human being. And I'm not adding to his coffers. The only way that I would make a return to mainstream media is if they gave me a huge platform in which to say whatever I wanted to say. Then I'm up for it. But it isn't like that. That's not how they work. They want you to talk about what they want you to talk about. And I was a talking head for a very long time in mainstream media. And trust me, nothing changes as a consequence of being that kind of talking head. Absolutely nothing. Things just don't change, right? Randy is talking about how Earth is God given to us. It certainly is. Sonia, what a long middle finger you have. Craig, listen, I have long, long fingers, right? I was born with long fingers, mate. And it's amazing what you can do with long fingers, including holding them very loftily up in the air. Yes, probably my rhesus negative kind of, you know, alien side. Who knows? Who can ever tell these days? I can't stand Murdoch. Is Jerry Hall a beard? Sugarpuff wants to know. She briefly married him, didn't she? Thank you, Rowie. Good to see you, Rowie. I haven't seen you in a little while. They do want to groom you. They do. Brawlbox. They are so keen on constantly doing that. Pianists have long fingers, says Soul Sound. Most musicians, we have long fingers. Randy, what are you saying? Oh my God, about law is simply dominion over land, air, and water. Long finger, long finger Friday. Born to point at miscreants. God, I love you people. Oh, Kath loves it. I love it too. Thank you so much. I love you all. Irish hands, says Cavan. That's true. They are. I mean, my mum was Irish by heritage, but I'm not sure if she was born in Tredegar, but she certainly spent her childhood in Tredegar in Wales. Yeah, my middle finger is dangerous, Stella. Don't mess with my middle finger. Right. I'm going to be shortly welcoming in my next guest, so I'm very reluctant to start on anything too lengthy. But let's see if there's anything else that I can just cover briefly. Yeah, the Washington Post has been warning America about a mass casualty that may take place before the election. Anybody see that? I heard it on the Redacted podcast, and I looked into it. This is coming from Congress. They are claiming that people need to be prepared for 100 to be killed in a major catastrophic event. They've created this initiative called the Continuity of Government, which would allow members of Congress to be instantly replaced. Right? Is it a false flag? Is it fear mongering? If this happened, no election would be needed, they pointed out. No voters would be allowed. Right? And it's extraordinary stuff. What is going on? Are they lining us up and preparing us? It's very difficult these days to work out how far the complicity of media goes and whether the Washington Post have reported that because someone in Congress have said, say it. Who knows? Biden's office, say it. Make them think that there's a real fear here regarding the elections and they have to do the right thing, i.e., voting Kamala. And so I don't know, but that's actually, the Washington Post is considered a very respectable newspaper. For it to be trotting out that line directly from Congress, I think is definitely worth considering what on earth they are planning to do. That's my thoughts on that. What are your thoughts on that? Let us bring in our next guest. I'm hoping it's not going to rain all day, by the way. And here she is. This is a magnificent human being. This is now, when I often talk about how being in service to other people is really good for your soul and uplifting and raising your spirits, this is an example of such a human being who does that. Radha Sterling does that. How are you, Radha?
Wonderful and great to see you again, Sonia.
Great to see you. We do often talk in here about how to lift your vibrations, and one of them is being in service to other people. And you absolutely are in service to other people. The things that you do for other people is literally phenomenal. You are, as they've been calling you in the newspapers, I don't know if you're happy about that, crisis manager. You are the CEO, of course, of Detained in Dubai. You are a human rights advocate. Are you a lawyer as well? By trade. Well, certainly you have a legal understanding, a great deal of legal understanding. But you've been over the mainstream media this week, and for a very, very good reason. This is an extraordinary story involving Dubai. Before we move on and you tell us about the story, just tell those of our viewers who don't know what Detained in Dubai is all about.
An organization that assists foreigners who run into legal troubles in the UAE and further afield.
It really is that simple. And how many thousands of people have you helped?
It's over 20,000 now, so we're probably heading to 22, 23,000 soon. I'll be tallying up at the end of the year.
I mean, that is extraordinary. Why is Dubai so problematic for many foreigners?
I think Dubai is really problematic. I mean, obviously, it's a number one tourist destination for British citizens and visitors, expats. People want to go and live there and enjoy, a low tax lifestyle. But I think the biggest problem comes from the marketing and the contradiction in what it appears to be, which is this party heaven of very relaxed circumstances where you can do whatever you want, whatever you would do in any other country like Spain or Las Vegas. But on the ground, it's actually very different. And I think it's a contradiction that leads to a lot of confusion and issues like we saw with Joseph and Joshua Lopez.
Well, let's talk about them because this is an extraordinary story. How did you get to hear about their plight?
Joshua's aunt contacted me when they had been
detained you are
Dubai.
You are a lighthouse for this. This is so important. Let's talk about it. Joseph and Joshua Lopez, they arrived. They've now arrived safely back in Ohio, which is where they come from. They were only in Dubai on a short vacation. It turned into an absolute nightmare for them. What happened?
I mean, we're looking at Mr. Louisiana, actually, a Mr. USA contestant. He wanted a quick holiday with his brother. He's a retired Air Force veteran now. And when he arrived there, he was seen as a target. You know, he's an American. He doesn't know much about the UAE. And he was lured to a party on board a yacht where he was given a drink. The brothers were each given one drink. And that's pretty much all they remembered. So clearly the drink was drugged. They were looking, I believe they took some money from them, some credit cards. And the next thing they remembered, there was a group of people trying to drag them into a car. They thought they were being abducted. And under the sort of drugs or whatever they were given, in the confusion, they tried to defend themselves from this, but it turned out they were actually plain-clothed police officers. So they were taken to the police station where they, said, "We think we've been drugged. This was very weird. We only had one drink." And the police refused to test them. Next thing, they're charged with consuming alcohol without a license from an unlicensed venue, which is the yacht. And of course, no one else on that yacht was arrested, just these two boys. And I believe that they were absolutely targeted. And this kind of thing happens on a very regular basis. I think, they were already sentenced to 6 months and they were facing additional sentences. So probably would have been 2 years or more. But fortunately, we were able to liaise with J.D. Vance, who's a senator of Ohio, and of course, Trump's running mate for the presidency. And he was so on the ball. He was pushing the US State Department, the US Embassy to get involved diplomatically. And I think without that diplomatic intervention, and of course, the support of the media, it was all over Fox News and, television broadcast. Without that, I think they would have seen years in prison.
This is really shocking. So you're telling me that people who actually have been victimized, they were very likely drugged. Who knows what else happened to them? They were robbed, so they were attacked. And yet they were then the criminals of all of this. Is that often how it works out there?
Oh, very much so. It's often the victims who end up being victimized again by the state of the justice system there. We had Selena Waterman-Smith, who was nervous to report her case, and in fact, the British Embassy advised her not to report her case. Now, she's a former Apprentice star, quite a, sort of mini celebrity. She was abducted from outside a hotel, taken to the desert and gang raped by several men. And the British Embassy said, don't report the crime because you'll end up being charged with, indecent behavior or sex outside marriage. But she decided to push it and did manage to get them convicted in the end because of the CCTV evidence. But so many women, so many men who have been the victims of crimes have ended up being prosecuted and even jailed.
That's extraordinary. Do you think had you and JD Vance not got involved, what these guys would have been in prison, wouldn't they?
Automatically, it was being streamlined. We don't know how influential and powerful the people were who actually drew them to the yacht. And in many instances, they have a strong connection with royals, members of the royal family, or with officers, police officers. And that affords some protection. And I mean, it happens so often that you do wonder whether there is some sort of a corrupt relationship there.
I mean, I think that's kind of key right there. And I think it would appear that that's a sort of sub part of the issues that you're dealing with is not straightforward. There's something clearly going very wrong that so many people who are not from the UAE go there and they are victimized, and they are repeatedly victimized. As you say, they're not just the victim in the first instant, but then they become the victim by the police who then accuse them of the crime that they're not responsible for. So it's really problematic. But you were full of praise for JD Vance, weren't you, and his role in this?
Absolutely. I was so happy to see the level of involvement that he was willing to offer, the level of push. And when governments do get involved, we are, obviously strengthened and empowered to achieve better results for people in these situations. Without government assistance, they can be left there to rot. And we saw recently the Irish girl, Tori Tui, who was a victim of domestic violence, ended up being charged with trying to kill herself with attempted suicide after being beaten and threatened and, ending up in hospital with bruises all over her body. Now, the Irish government got heavily involved in that case, and we were able to bring her home very quickly. But that's another example of a victim being charged, and she faced certainly a long time in prison. But what I've seen lately is the British, well, not lately, for a long time, the British government has been unwilling to
Well, I was
help
going
their
to ask you, how good are our own government?
Well, they have been good in the past. We've had certain MPs who have gone above and beyond and certainly helped many of our clients get home. But it's a little bit distressing to see the lack of assistance from the British Embassy, from diplomats who assure us that they're helping, but nothing seems to happen. With a change of government, we've just reached out to Keir Starmer's new administration and said, we have this existing case of a grandfather, Albert Douglas, who was tortured and abused in prison. With a new change of administration, we'd like to know what you are doing, because this one is so outrageous, where he's
Tell
been.
us. We don't know. I don't know this.
Well, this is a grandfather who was accused or jailed for writing a check, and the check bounced, which was a crime in Dubai. However, the forensic expert appointed by the court confirmed that he didn't even write the check. So after serving a 2-year sentence, Sheikh Mohammed Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, gave him a pardon. And at that point, the British embassy thought that he would be returning home. They absolutely believed it. But he's still in prison now. So that pardon was almost 2 years ago. And the reason is apparently some red tape. There's a deportation order, but also a travel ban at the same time. So they're conflicting and they don't know what to do about it. But that is, frankly, that is just not true. It's very easy for them to just release him if they wanted to. But because he was a torture victim and raised the case at United Nations, raised it with the British Embassy, I don't think they want to let him go and talk publicly about what he's experienced there. But the British government has just been, talking a lot of talk, but we haven't seen very strong results. And we're seeing strong results from other governments, the Irish government, the Canadian government, the US government. So it's really disappointing to see the British government just more worried about having those meetings and parties with diplomats in the UAE than they are about helping citizens who clearly need it.
It's a very difficult job that you're doing, because even though it is about human rights and you will be dealing with law and all of that, but there must be an element of, when these people come to you, they must be so desperate. You must almost be like some sort of agony aunt as well, because it must be terrifying to be in a foreign country and find yourself on the sharp end of their law. How are people when they first come to you generally?
I mean, they're lost, they're distressed, they don't know what's going to happen to them. They've seen nightmare stories and they're facing that same nightmare. So when their families come to me, they're just looking for guidance, help. What can I do? I want to do everything I can to help my relative, just point me in the right direction. And they're usually extremely helpful. And once you start getting that momentum, when you start, speaking to people like JD Vance or the MPs in the United Kingdom, and you start getting responses, it sort of clears their head a little bit and gives them that hope. And I was talking to Joseph and Joshua throughout the whole ordeal, and his whole family, as well as Tori Tui during her, very distressing situation. But obviously, yes, that's a huge element, is, helping the families through
Very, very
such a
hard.
crisis.
It is a crisis, and you are absolutely brilliant at it. And thank goodness for you. You are literally, I think I've called you this before, I think you are a national treasure. I genuinely do. I think what you're doing it's fantastic. Like I say, it's in the service of people. And I know that these people are incredibly grateful to you as well, because you're like this shining light to them that enables them to fight their way through it. And why did you first take an interest in Dubai, by the way?
Oh, that was because one of my colleagues at Endemol took a short holiday in Dubai and was arrested there. And I basically led the campaign and worked with the lawyers to get him home safely. It succeeded. And then other people saw what I did for him, because it was all over the media, Big Brother boss detained in Dubai. And they started contacting me and saying, well, can you help me as well? So, and it just grew just naturally from there.
You are amazing. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is absolutely brilliant work. These people are back home with their family now, exactly where they're supposed to be. It could have all gone so horribly wrong without your involvement and your intervention, everybody. This is really the phenomenal Rada Sterling. And I will put a link to Detained in Dubai in our description so people can check out more what you do. And how are you funded, Rada?
We do commercial cases as well. So our commercial, our contract commercial, where there's no risk of imprisonment, we charge for those services, and then that sort of funds the pro bono, much like a normal law firm.
You do an amazing job. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We greatly appreciate it. Take good care of yourself, everybody. Radha
Thank
Sterling.
you, Sonia. Great to see
Brilliant
you.
work. Great to see you too. Amazing. And doing good obviously does her good, doesn't it? Look at her beautiful complexion. Horrible situation. Imagine finding yourself in a country like that on the wrong end of the law. And thank God for people like her. Thank you, Radha. Keep up the good work, says Rowie. What a lovely woman to have on your side, Radha, says Tara. Thank you for all you're doing. God bless you. And what domestic workers in Dubai? Well, I think it's only about getting them out of Dubai, as opposed to like trade union work or anything like that. I didn't know this. Thank you, says Kat. Yeah, going to Dubai has got nothing to do with supporting what Diddy does. Hey? What the? Anybody want to tell me what that is in relation to? Yes. Right. Let us move on. And what did I want to talk about? Yeah, this is interesting. Julian Assange to address Council of Europe following confirmation of his status as a political prisoner. This is going to be interesting. October the 1st next week, so I think that's Tuesday, Julian Assange will arrive in Strasbourg to give evidence before the Committee on Legal Affairs and Human Rights of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, also known as PACE. This, of course, comes following the release of not only Assange, but the PACE inquiry report into his case. The report focuses on the implications of his detention and the broader impact of it in terms of human rights, in particular issues of journalism, for example, where journalism has absolutely been criminalized through Julian Assange. And the report also confirms that Assange qualifies as a political prisoner and calls on the UK to conduct an independent review into whether he was exposed to inhuman or degrading treatment. I think I have the answer to that one. There are, of course, legal and extra legal measures to suppress dissent across borders, and the report discusses that. Julian Assange, we are told, is still in recovery following his release from prison in June 2024. He was inside for a very long time. I think it was 14 years, his father said to me. Extremely long time. How egregious was that? And it really was for the crime of being a journalist. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. It literally was that. So obviously there's a problem with that. Big problem with what happened to him. And I'm really glad he's going to be making that address. And it'll be interesting to see him as well. I've seen kind of like shots of him on the beach with his wife and children. That's lovely in Australia. But it'll be interesting to see him and how he's doing after all this time. And this is an interesting one. Lovely James, who's often in the comments with us. Hello, grand risings to you, James. How are you, my lovely? And James writes in from time to time, and I always enjoy his emails. So indeed do I enjoy all of yours. And he wrote, I've been certain for a long time that this nefarious shadow government wants people to riot and attempt to tear down the system. I feel a real goading nature to this assault on humanity. And I honestly believe that they are constantly trying to push people's buttons as much as possible to induce riots and civil war. Here is a perfect example in the attachment to this email. To me, there is nothing more evil than sexual crimes against children, said James. And what he attached was an article on the Daily Mail. I'm going to read what he said. So in this article on the Daily Mail, there is Hugh Edwards, who, just like Tony Blair, seems to look more evil by the day, convicted of category A images, which are the worst type of child sexual images. And he gets a suspended sentence. But then in the article next to it, and James believes this is very much on purpose, there is an article calling for tougher sentences for petty crimes. You just can't make this up, he said. For me, this is meant to rile, meant to goad, and meant to enrage people. You'd have to be either evil or dead not to see those two articles side by side and not be angry. And I see this all the time in my local newspaper, The Sentinel. Every week there are people caught with child sex abuse images. And every time the judge gives them suspended sentences, what they are actually doing is subconsciously saying that these crimes aren't that big of a deal and are only worthy of a slap on the wrist. And that all comes from the top. And I agree with you, James. It feels, as he says, like we are constantly being deliberately goaded. And to a degree, we certainly are. Do you feel it? Do you feel provoked? Because I do. Yeah, Joy already. Look, I've just gone to the comments. And well said, James, said Joy. Agreed. I see it too. And I agree, said Kat. I absolutely. It definitely feels like that. And he's right. That positioning of an article, that's not coincidental, is it? Where they're letting this man who has made and acquired category A images, they're letting him go off free. And then the next article is like, we need tougher sentences for petty crime. That is not accidental. I worked in newspapers for an awful long time. They know about the positioning and placing of articles. Marie is triggered almost daily. Robert agrees with James. I agree, James. Spot on. Folk are angry and fed up now, says Shalini. I agree with James, but we are on to them, says Short Order Cook. And aren't we? Does anybody remember Jonathan Caner? Jonathan Caner was a famous astrologer. And Jonathan Caner was the reason that I got into astrology in the first place. He's dead now, but I followed him for an awful long time and I met him once. It was at a festival in Wales, a very famous one that actually Hugh Edwards was at the same time, but is famous for attending. What's it called? Can anybody remember? Any of our Welsh wonderful people? Yes. But yeah, James, I think you've got a lot of support here. I think people are absolutely agreeing with you. But yeah, what Jonathan Caner said was that in the future, things are going to be a lot more transparent. We are going to see the corruption much more transparently than we ever had before. And I think this is a perfect example in some respects. Yeah, you remember Jonathan. Oh, did you meet Jonathan at Glastonbury Synchronized? Chris, there's so many ads today. There shouldn't be. I've got it on moderate. Of course, moving forward, we're going to get rid of ads. We will get rid of ads. Yes, we will. We're making moves for that. Love Jonathan Caner. Missed that. What Wales, says Marie. It was, what is it called? Something GOG. Oh, God. I'm with somebody with kind of like a Welsh-Irish mother. It's shameful how little I know. Anne-Marie has got it. Eisteddfod. That's it. That's it. Yes, Robert, please get this channel to as many people as possible. Humphrey is questioning everything. I'm questioning Nostradamus. It reads like a Wefer handbook to me. Yeah, Klaus Schwab of his day. So yes, James, thank you. We can all relate to that. It definitely is that feeling. And by the way, James sounds absolutely murderous about what he'd do with child sex abusers. He really thinks that it's time we consider dispatching with their testicles. Kind of like the idea of that, frankly. Right, thank you. I was going to a degree, call today's show the media edition, because there's so much kind of media stuff that I think is really interesting. And I think I've said this to you before, I'm not interested in celebrities. What I'm interested in is the impact that they have on the world. And that includes kind of real kind of media celebrities. And the one I'm thinking of here right now is Philip Schofield. And this really has to come into our propaganda corner, because I want to look at two examples from different sides of the coin. What we have is the celebrity rehabilitation and the welfare queen. So first of all, former TV presenter Philip Schofield, new program Castaway, Channel 5, apparently all on his lonesome, given a camera to look into the dark night of his soul after he was exposed as having what they described as an inappropriate relationship with a young showrunner. But the fact is that questions still have to be answered. And what they're doing is they're absolutely determined to rehabilitate him. And I wrote a piece on social media about it. Last time I looked, I think it had on Twitter alone, it had, I don't know, 150,000 views or something. So, and because it's great, I mean, there's a great opportunity on X to get stuff out far and wide, no doubt about it. Anyway, I wrote this kind of like editorial about Philip Schofield, who I've met many, many times because I used to do debates on This Morning. And the fact is, he lied to loved ones, he lied to the public for decades about his sexuality. He was forced to leave This Morning when that inappropriate relationship came to light. Holly Willoughby left shortly afterwards because there's really only so much you can make the public believe that you didn't know about your TV husband and best friend. And don't forget, there was all that big fake coming out on the sofa, and that was because the Sun were going to expose Philip Schofield for being gay. And then if you notice afterwards, it was the Sun who had the exclusive interview with him. Was it Dan Wootton, by the way, who had that interview with Philip Schofield? You know, that big sob. Oh God, it's been so hard for me all these years lying to my wife and my children and being gay, that kind of thing. And the PR blurb around this Castaway show, frankly, is top notch. They have got Philip Schofield as a man who's like stared deep into the abyss as it stared back at him. He's searching the very depths of his imperfect soul, finding a new way forward. And the blurb for the TV show is, with 10 days to himself, no camera crews or production around, he shot some unbelievably raw footage. Some of it makes for tough, emotional viewing, but he wanted a chance to share his story, unedited and honest, and let viewers see another side to him. I don't want to see another side to him. I've seen enough of Philip Schofield. I saw him fully engaged in the C19 propaganda. I saw his arrogance around do you remember when him and Holly were said to have jumped the queue when people were standing by that empty coffin? Did I say that for the Queen? Did I say that? Oh my God, shame on me. But we don't know she was in there. Who knows if she was in there? I don't think she was in there. I mean, I just find it hard to believe. But anyway, maybe she was. But anyway, the point is that all went sour for him there as well. But the bottom line is this. I worked at ITV primarily on This Morning as a talking head for nearly 10 years. I know a lot of people there. And they did an ITV inquiry into this so-called inappropriate relationship between Philip Schofield and a young runner. And the staff there told me it was an absolute whitewash. The people who were leading the inquiry didn't want to talk to them, didn't want to hear anything which was kind of dissenting from Philip Schofield's official narrative about this lad. But the thing is, he could well be in trouble, because I am now hearing whispers on the grapevine that so what they did is Philip and this young man, and I'm not saying his name because he's chosen right now not to bring himself out publicly, even though people know who he is. There's pictures and images online of him with Philip, but I'm going to adhere to what he wants for now. But I'm hearing whispers on the grapevine that this Castaway program, where it is absolutely about rehabilitating Philip Schofield, no doubt about it. And I'm hearing that, first of all, staff at This Morning are furious that he's being given this, but also that there may be a problem now because he signed an NDA with his young lover. And the idea was that they were not going to talk about this and it was all just going to move on and everything. But there's Philip with his handheld camera, you know, kind of talking about how what he did was unwise, but, you know, he shouldn't be ostracized for it and everything. That is going to rake up a whole lot of stuff. Do not be surprised if, when this program starts to kind of, you know, take off, steam up, that this lad comes forward and wants to tell his side of the story, because at the moment it's all Phil's big pity party. And I absolutely loathe that. I don't know whether he's a narcissist or not. I suspect he probably is. But it's all a big pity party. And the love is all kind of all gather around him and all do their media interviews with him. And, oh, it's so difficult. And yeah, it was naughty what he did, but it wasn't that bad. It was bad. It was bad. At the very least, it was an abuse of your position, of your power. And that lad had no TV experience. He only got into TV because of Philip Schofield. And now apparently he's left TV because everybody knew it was very shameful for him. And but don't worry, because the adult in this situation is off there, been on a desert island and looking to get plaudits. He'll probably win a BAFTA or something for it. You know how they work, these people. But I reckon it's going to reopen old wounds. That's what I think it will do. Apparently, they are marketing it as Schofield's story of survival, both on a desert island and off of it. He led a charmed life for a very long time. For decades, he lied to the public. That takes a lot of chutzpah to do that. Right, to show up 4 days a week, I think it was Monday to Thursday they did, show up 4 days a week and literally lie about who you are, because that's what he did. So I don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth. And when they tell me this is like really honest and raw and everything, I am so sick of it. Christine says, these people are all odious. Short order wants there to be a hole in the raft. Randy said that man can't boil an egg, so surviving solitude on a desert island is just a big joke. Up our butts. It is. Yeah, Jan. Matt Hancock did the same route, didn't he? Matt Hancock, who was the health secretary during C-19. And Matt Hancock was desperate to be a celebrity. But the problem is Matt Hancock doesn't have the kind of charm necessary to be a celebrity. Because you don't have to be smart to be a celebrity, but you need to have some kind of charm. And he doesn't have it. Kat is concerned what happened in that broom cupboard. You remember, wasn't that when Philip Schofield used to be in the broom cupboard with Gordon the Gopher? Yes, please, Soul Sound. Let's spread waking up with Sonia and guests. Let's spread, people. Let's spread. How many are with us this morning? 2,485. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. But I want to look on the other side of the coin because Philip Schofield is a media lovey and they love him because they're probably complicit in one way, right? Yeah, Maria, it's hard to lie, but some people are really brilliant at it. Humphrey says he's channeling Tom Hanks in Castaway, and we all know about Tom Hanks. Oh, Humphrey, what do you mean? Ah, Amy, they test in the waters to see if such a person can come back. I think it's a test. I think you're bloody right, girl. I think you're right. It really feels like it. Poor Gordon. Paul Gordon, says Emma. Right, so the other side of the coin, which of course, because now we know that Keir Starmer, even though they say we're not going to do austerity again, we now know that they're after bringing down the welfare bill again, right? They always go after the welfare bill again. Now, let me be clear here. I believe in the power of work, but not in a totalitarian way. Work is good for me because I love doing the work I do. But some people, it's a long, hard slog and it's miserable, right? And it can make people sick. But there are, of course, people who swing the lead. I mean, I can think of a handful of people that I know, online kind of trolls who are unemployed, do not do a day's work, spend all their time online while taxpayers are funding them. One day I really should expose them. Online trolls who are on the dole. Yeah, I like that title actually, because I think we need to take it away from regular people who need some kind of assistance. And I've needed assistance in my lifetime. There is no shame in it when you need it. This is why I'm perfectly happy to pay tax, because I believe in helping people who are less fortunate than myself, right? But of course, what they're going to do, again, is they're going after the sick and disabled, as they always do. But you know what they've started doing? And this is the thing, one of the good things about having done this for so long is it becomes cyclical. There's like a circular dimension to their behavior and what they do. And so what they've done is they've brought in from the cold the woman they call a welfare queen. Her name is Maria Buchanan. She has 8 children. She's unemployed. And she's like been trawled across the This Morning sofa so Philip and Holly can, play their part. Because don't forget, they're total establishment suck-ups. And they certainly were on This Morning. But so Maria Buchanan is kind of like a useful idiot. They wheel her out to say things like, oh, I spent my benefits on boob job, designer, VJ and a horse, that kind of stuff. And they do it to provoke us, just what James is talking about, because the Maria Buchanans are far rare. They are few and far between, but she was shoved all over the mainstream press. They describe her as a jobless mother of 8, as boasted about the luxuries she has bought with taxpayers' cash, claiming that being on benefits has never held her back. Now, I don't doubt that she has said and done all of these things. I don't doubt it at all. But she's rare, and it makes me sick how they use her to attack vulnerable people. There are people who genuinely need assistance. And don't forget, the vast majority of people now in receipt of benefits are not unemployed at all. They're working. It's just the wages aren't covering all of the things that need to be covered. So yeah, I'm absolutely after going after people who swing the lead and should absolutely be working. But the vast majority of people who claim any form of benefit are not only working, but also need it. And sick and disabled certainly do. And I absolutely loathe the way that mainstream media did do this. They did this in 2012. when David Cameron and George Osborne were starting to push through their austerity properly. And suddenly there were a rash of programs like, Benefit Street and all that. And it was all about demonizing people on benefits. And coming from the background that I do, we grew up on benefits. And I'm not ashamed of that. And that's why, as an adult, I am more than happy to assist anybody else who needs it. Because it is a healthy welfare state is really important, right? But they never go after the millionaires, do they, with their tax evasion and tax avoidance? They never go after them. It makes me so sick. And that is just propaganda. Ian's talking about that they jumped the queue for the empty coffin, like these rich pensioners who claim they're happy to. That's absolutely right, Lat. That is a perfect example. That is a perfect example. So Lat said, like these rich pensioners who claim they are happy to lose the winter fuel allowance. It's just gaslighting. Yeah, because again, they're going to be few and far between. Kat, you're absolutely right. Having a disability is very expensive. My dear darling brother, before he passed away, it was expensive for him to live. All the things that he had to do. And this is a man who had worked for a very long time and paid a huge amount of money into the system. What's this? Not seen this morning since my mother died 18 years ago. Never could stand daytime TV, says Stephen. How interesting. Yeah, Elaine, when you open your eyes to it all, it's breathtaking how the governments peddle this. Absolutely it is. And honestly, the government and the media work hand in hand. And don't file tax return simple, says Cheds. Well, I cannot take that advice, Cheds. That'll get me into a lot of trouble. Yes, it's also transparent, says TD. I had to give up work last year. Too ill. The ill that have luxuries must be dodgy because it's a poor existence. I can live frugally, but when you can't physically work, what can you do? I agree. They will have twisted it some way how she's managed to have done that. But either way, obviously, clearly, she comes over as feckless. And that is the whole idea, isn't it? And I don't think it's a coincidence either that they choose a white woman with mixed race children because, again, they want to ram home that point. And I hate it. Demonized by Channel 5 Benefit Street. I'd like to see them do a show about Bankers Street, says Emma. I had an argument on this morning. I think the video is still on YouTube with the man who commissioned, I think it was Benefit Street for Channel 4. And he was the commissioner. And I literally handed him his bucks. I was so appalled that this kind of champagne socialist was sat there saying, yes, it's really important that we get an insight into how other people live. No, what you wanted to do was you played right into the hands of the government to demonize these people, make it look like they're receiving so much that they're living the life of Riley, when in fact they're not. Gary, what have you been struggling with, mate? I have lost everything due to chronic illness and have nothing, and I mean no money once a week. Please don't think I like it one bit. I no, absolutely. You don't. And that's why I do not like the demonization and how they pick these individuals. But look how they balance it, though, right? They have the celebrity that they want to rehabilitate. And then they have the feckless single mother who they want to attack, and they want to use her to attack everybody else who's in receipt of benefits. It's disgusting. They do always go after the easy targets. TD, it's all right. Your typos are forgiven. They go after the easy targets, and I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. But I do have some good news. Let me just wipe my little mouth and have a slug of water. I have some good news. There's a ruling in the United States. A federal judge, right, actually was appointed by Obama, if I remember correctly, has ruled that the entire water supply based on the data supplied by the industry is very likely unsafe at the current fluoride levels. And a brilliant line in Judge Chen's ruling against the EPA in favor of the Fluoride Action Network is actually quoted by Derek Brose. I know Derek, I've interviewed Derek before, and he's done an awful lot of stuff to do with fluoride. And he's actually in the UK this weekend, I believe, in Bath. So I might actually see him because I'm going to be there as well. But he's picked up one of the most important things that the judge said about this ruling. And that is plaintiffs have proven by a preponderance of the evidence that water fluoridation at the level of 0.7 milligrams, they prescribed optimal level of fluoridation in the United States presents an, quotes, unreasonable risk of injury to health or the environment without consideration of costs or other non-risk factors, including an unreasonable risk to a potentially exposed or susceptible subpopulation under the conditions of use. Now, in the UK, Starmer's government is working on extending fluoridation in our water. And this is a ruling that's just come from the States. And I hope this will empower fluoridation groups, because this is a major ruling. This can make a lot of difference, right? I mean, the ruling itself is really interesting. I urge you to read it. I don't have time to go through it bit by bit, but I think that is a really key point, is the judges absolutely acknowledge that we're talking about dangerous levels here. And one must ask, how dangerous is this around the world? That's we're looking at in the States. What about in the UK, given that they intend to expand it? Troubling times indeed. And we all know what they used to do with fluoride in Germany, don't we? Rowie, are you drunk? Well done, Catherine, and good luck to you. What's Kath done? Here we go. I have struggled with agoraphobia for many years and don't claim anything, but found myself way out my comfort zone and went for a job interview yesterday. Hopefully the making and not the breaking of me. Kath, I am thrilled for you. When I say I believe in work, I do, in terms of my work has helped me oftentimes get through really dark times, like, because it gives me a purpose. But well done, darling. That's really good. And I'm not for shoving people out when they should be retiring. It actually hurts me when I see 70-year-olds stacking shelves in Tesco, and I'm pretty certain that's not their choice, that they are forced to do it. And that sort of stuff really hurts me. Or doing really kind of hard manual labor as well at a certain age. It's just not right. Rowie has given up water and started drinking alcohol full time. I got you. Big hugs to you, Kath, says the Blue Nomad. It's not ideal. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, I read that, didn't I? Emma double filters her water, whether it helps or not. I don't trust bottled water either, which is sad, but they are owned by the same people. Now, here's the thing, is I do buy bottled water. Don't be angry with me, people. But I'm probably going to have to change that now anyway, because they've changed the system so that the caps now, you can't take the plastic cap off separately. I'm sure I've told you about this. You have to unscrew it and it stays on because it's all part of the net zero policy. But it's really, really hard. You need a really tight grip. Pauline is also agoraphobic. Did they, Kat? They increased fluoride in your water during COVID? Yeah, that's right, Greg. Absolutely. It isn't the only contaminant. I refused to, when I found out about cryptosporidium in water when my daughter was very young, and I was like, my daughter is not having water from the taps. And I used to then just boil all water, anything that my daughter had. That is what they say, Matlockization. Doesn't fluoride prevent tooth decay? That is what they say. But there's a big argument against it in many key respects. And this ruling is very interesting. So do check out what Judge Chen has to say, because as I say, this is somebody of note. This is a precedent-setting 7-year legal battle in federal court, right? So this is significant. This is a historic ruling. The US Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, have now been ordered to take regulatory action to eliminate the unreasonable risk to the health of children posed by the practice of water fluoridation. So I think that is significant. That verdict is significant. Let's see if that spreads around the world. Let's see if it does. Anybody been watching the C19 inquiry? Oh, don't bother, it's awful. Chris Whitty, of course, been on the stand. Chris Whitty led the charge during COVID, was paid very handsomely for it. And he often appeared at the press conferences, at the podium from Parliament. And he's the one who said at the COVID inquiry that COVID was incredibly harrowing for NHS staff. But he also said we overstated danger of COVID at the start. I mean, if that's the closest they're going to get to an admission, they needn't bother. This inquiry has been set up to seal the official narrative. That's what it's been designed to do. And it will do that. It will do that. That's what it will do. And I want to look at the Thirlwell inquiry on Monday. That's another inquiry. That's into Nurse Lucy Letby. And I'm just getting some kind of updates on that. But it's not looking good because, again, very narrow terms of reference. The inquiry was launched on the basis that she is a convicted murderer to 7 babies and 7 attempted murders as well. And that is what the inquiry is about. And it's really looking like a foregone conclusion at the moment. And that is nurse bad. NHS was problematic, but not responsible for anything too bad. And that seems to be the way it's going. I don't trust inquiries. Largely, I don't, unless they are people led, as opposed to establishment led. We shall see. But I will be updating more on that on Monday. I saw an advert on Private Eye, by the way, and it's of a TV producer with a clipboard putting a bag over the head of somebody, and it says BBC News in the background. And the caption is, "This way, if you turn out to be a pedo, we won't have to edit you out." I mean, I'm not laughing about somebody being a pedo, just the fact that it's now like absolute common knowledge that that is what is happening, that literally is what is happening. I mean, what we are finding out without a shadow of a doubt is how many gay men have been hiding the fact that they are gay. And we've heard that from, like the whole Diddy stuff, like the amount of men that are now being out as gay. And I don't agree with people being outed, by the way. I don't. But I also don't agree with people lying to us and pretending that they are kind of like, the ultimate male. Not saying that if you're gay, you're not the ultimate male. Not at all. Honesty would make you the ultimate male, not pretending to be something because it sells well to the crowds. But we are actually hearing, aren't we, how many significant people now in music and entertainment are gay and have been hiding it. And I don't think it's a coincidence, by the way, that the man who commissioned Philip Schofield for that Castaway program is a gay man. I don't think that's a coincidence. And don't forget, this weekend on Sunday, I'll be in Bath hosting a Q&A at the premiere of Andy Wakefield's new film, Protocol 7. There is ticket details in the description, and I'm really looking forward to that. That's from, I think, about like 5 to 8:15. There'll be the premiere of the film, which I haven't yet seen. We'll all watch that. I'll watch that with the audience, and then Andy Wakefield will join us from Texas, and we will do a remote Q&A with the audience, and I will be hosting it, and I am very much looking forward to it. Yes, I am. How are you people? John from Coventry is talking about how Americans laugh about us Brits and our teeth. We've infamously become known as people with poor teeth. I don't have poor teeth. I did have poor teeth as a child, actually, because I had some kind of gum disease as like a 6-year-old, and I had to have my baby teeth removed. Well, my teeth grew quite straight. TD is on turmeric. Why are you on that? Mike Tyson and Conor McGregor. Oh, never mind. That's horrendous. Email Sonia. She will know someone to advise. Heppelwin, what's happening? What's happening? Bath is a lovely place, Stephen. It is. And can we be clear here? And that is, I have absolutely no issue with people being gay. Not at all. I have been a long-term LGBT ally and will continue to be. And I don't necessarily agree that people should be outed, but I also don't want to be lied to. Sonia, can you try and get now? Amy, did you ask me this the other week? Because I'm pretty sure I sent out an email on this. Can you try and get Ryan Montgomery on? His work on capturing paedophiles definitely needs to be acknowledged. I'm pretty sure I've already reached out to him, but I will do it again. Catherine's always wanted to visit Bath. I had great teeth until I was on my own, underage in London, NHS dentistry in Peckham. Not good in the 80s, 90s. There are a lot of crooks out there in dentistry. They really are. And like vets these days, I mean, we've got a great vet, one of the last independents in the area. But like vets these days, dentists are all about the money, 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 money. They are. When I was pregnant, and I don't know if you can still get that now. When I was pregnant, you could get three free tooth care, and I went to a new dentist, and he told me I needed 14 fillings, and I went for a second look with another dentist, and I didn't need any fillings. This dentist was going to fill my head with 14 fillings because it wasn't going to cost me anything. That's just shocking, isn't it? Awful. Um, oh, what's going on with coconut oil? Coconut oil is great for you. It's good stuff, can be used in all manner of ways. Right, what else do I want to talk about before we head off today? Let me just do a quick recce. Oh, by the way, special request. See, Amy, when people ask me, I do endeavour to bring on the guests that they want. And Monday's guest, HG Tudor, is at special request of several of our viewers. HG Tudor is on YouTube. He's a specialist in narcissism on account of the fact that he is a diagnosed narcissist. And he'll be joining us on Monday. Not only to talk about narcissism, but to take questions about narcissism, because we do talk about it often because there are so many narcissists in the public sphere. So HG Tudor will be joining us to take questions either from our viewers who want to write in or join us on the live stream on Monday to ask him questions. So I'm looking forward to that. Very much looking forward to that. What else? What else is going on, people, that I want to cover before we leave? I see that Musk is telling people to boycott pedo-freeing UK. So Keir Starmer summit. So Elon Musk was a guest at the UK government's artificial intelligence safety summit last year. In fact, he even ended up interviewing Rishi Sunak. Well, he's been not invited this year because this year is being run by Keir Starmer, and of course, Elon Musk's ex has greatly upset Keir Starmer. So Elon Musk, who is at the very least a petty man with thin skin who cannot take any slight whatsoever. So he's now telling people to boycott pedo-freeing UK. And the thing is, I have to agree with that description. I mean, we just found out that this man that they released under their new scheme and then who was immediately arrested allegedly for carrying out a sexual attack at a train station was not supposed to have been released. He was released in error, and there were several with him that they can't even find. And that was Keir Starmer's initiative, so he could bang up people on the street who were so frustrated they felt the need to take to the streets. But yeah, so Musk is calling us pedo-freeing UK. And unfortunately, I find it difficult to disagree with him about this because, you know, obviously they've snubbed him. And Elon Musk knows a whole load about AI. So it's really foolish in some respects that they've snubbed him because he'd be very useful to them. But hey ho, maybe it's all a stage. Maybe we're all part of some grand plot and some grand play. Who knows? Right. I found, and I was moving things around yesterday, I found this letter. And I thought I would share some of it with you. It's actually from Jeremy Bamber. Jeremy Bamber, who was convicted of murdering his mother, father, sister, and twins about 35 years ago now, in the 80s. And I am one of many people who believe that this is a miscarriage of justice, that Jeremy Bamber is not responsible because it would appear that so Jeremy Bamber's sister Sheila Caffel was very sick, not her fault at all. She had very serious psychological issues and she had stopped taking her medication, and it would appear that she almost certainly killed everybody in the farmhouse, because when Jeremy Bamber arrived with the police outside the farmhouse in Essex where it happened, there was lights on inside. There was somebody at the window and it looked like Sheila, and Jeremy was with them. But I believe he's been subject to a terrible miscarriage of justice. I believe that Essex police failed him, and Essex police have a fairly notorious reputation for failing quite high profile cases, including the whole kind of Stuart Lubbock dying in former celebrity Michael Barrymore's pool. But yes, so I found this and I want to read you bits of it because he's in HMP Wakefield, which is referred to as Monster Mansion. Oh, that light has just gone out on me, people. What just happened there? Is that too dark for us? Can you still see me? Um, and I can't get up and actually plug it into the socket. That's just, do forgive me. We're gonna have to end the show with it looking a bit dark, but I'm sure we'll cope. Right, that will teach me. That will teach me to make sure it's plugged in fully in future. But anyway, so what Jeremy said to me was, "Dear Sonia, I had hoped to have good news to share with you about my case being referred to the Court of Appeal by the CCRC. I have news." And this is actually from 2022 that he wrote to me. "Our case manager has been promising us substantive updates since Christmas. Instead, at the end of April, he says he is about to resign from the CCRC and my case would be reassigned." And this is what happens repeatedly with these people. And remember, the CCRC failed Andrew Malkinson, who was banged up inside for 17 years for a rape he did not commit. And we talk about the CCRC a lot around here because it's a failure. It's the Criminal Case Review Commission, and it is their job. They are supposed to review potential miscarriages of justice, and they fail people. And I do believe that Jeremy Bamber has been failed by the system. And actually, in this, he talks about his then girlfriend, Julie. Is it Julie Muggeridge? It was definitely Julie, but Julie was a major theme, and almost certain without her testimony he would not have gone down. But he was leaving her, and she claimed when he was leaving her, she went to the police and claimed that he was responsible for the murders. And I think that it is very possible that Julie is a case of a person scorned, and it ended up with a man losing his life and liberty. And when you read this from somebody who's been so very significantly demonized in the press, and it's really sad. He talks about how Essex police knew Julie had sold her story pre-trial. So it was said that Julie had sold her story, I believe, to the News of the World before she even testified at the trial. And so she had a dog in the race with him being convicted. And Jeremy is saying Essex police knew about that. And it's wrong. It's all very wrong. But I found it last night and I just thought how awful it must be if you are innocent, like I believe Lucy Letby is highly likely also to be a miscarriage of justice. But how awful must it be? Blue Nomad, she was paid £20,000. It was round about that sum, I believe, new Blue Nomad. And imagine how much that would have been then. A lot of money. A lot of money. Not sure, has got some inflammation, some itchy spots, and I've heard it makes your hair grow back. What on earth has been talked about here? Chris says, Jeremy Bamber has been failed by so many. I believed the lies until Sonia started talking about it, and it's terrible what has happened to him. Vanessa said Julie did a Judas. Would appear so. It absolutely would appear so. Yeah, Rowie, to have your life stolen like that, it's absolutely awful. A Halloween news hour, said Matt Lockization. Not today, Satan. Not today. Oh, absolutely not today. Right, that should bring us on to, I think, the last feature on our show today. And I think it's a lovely one, actually. And that is finding meaning in. And I was thinking about this last night because we often take for granted, don't we, our daily lives. And I love that expression, finding meaning in the mundane. So I thought about it more at length and thought about what does it actually mean to me, and how do I apply it to my life? And then I started to think about it more deeply. And so, for example, if you do a 9 to 5, that can appear incredibly mundane, miserable existence, like you're on, like you're on a hamster wheel. But if you are spent doing that, first of all, know that you are not alone. A survey finds that almost 60% of the average person's day is spent on routine details like emails, informal conversations, planning, paperwork, that sort of routine stuff that people often put off, manual tasks, for example. We're also told that the majority of people will work for around 90,000 hours in our lifetime. Then roughly 2,250 full days will likely be spent in ordinary ways. Well, it's those ordinary ways that I'm interested in. And I started to look more into it, as I say, and I started to think more about what it is that I do that it would be considered mundane, and how do I find meaning in it. And that's where I came up with the humble potato, which I want to get around to because I love potatoes. I absolutely love potatoes. I appreciate they're not exotic, by the way. But first of all, in order to find meaning in the mundane, there are a number of things that are useful to do. And that is to adopt a craft person's mindset when you're doing that mundane thing, to start to break it down, right? Peeling a potato is not like being a craftsperson or a stonemason building a cathedral or whatever, or astronauts or anything like that. It's nothing like that, but it can be equally as magnificent, because when you want to find meaning in the mundane, start to ask yourself as you're doing it, how will what I'm doing impact another person? What end outcome does it make possible? How can I use my strengths more to do it? So then as I say, I then thought about what it is that I do that is mundane, but yet in its own right is also magnificent and a miracle. So the potato. Now, to me, this is far from regular, as I can personally attest that you can make numerous dishes that are potato based, right? This is not a cooking slot, by the way, but it's not sexy, is it? It's not exotic. It's not a spider plant or a wild jute or a cassava or even an aubergine or asparagus. It's a basic vegetable, and yet it's completely magic in the right hands. And I am those hands. What I can't do with a potato, frankly, isn't worth doing. I kid you. Please don't get crude. But you know what I'm saying? Point is this: when I peel potatoes, I sometimes try and remind myself about the meaning in the very mundanity of what I'm doing. So when I prepare a potato dish, for example, it's so much more than that for me. I cook food with love. Right? That's important to me these days. I spent enough of my earlier years resenting cooking for other people, but not these days. If I can't cook it with love, I ain't cooking. So, for example, when I'm preparing a potato for a dish, say, for example, if it requires to be peeled, right? It's more than just taking the skin off of it. There are a whole chain of events that made this moment miraculous and gave meaning to this mundane moment, like the planting, tending, and harvesting of it, for example. The commercial process that made it possible to bring it to me, seeing as I haven't grown my own potatoes in years, but each year I tell myself I will, because it's a brilliant feeling. It's an absolutely brilliant feeling seeing them grow and then pulling them out of the ground. And I tell you, I have never, ever tasted potatoes as good as the ones that we have grown ourselves many moons ago. And I find meaning in all of that. I do. And I find meaning in, when I'm preparing the potato dish, is the end result of it. Who's going to be eating it? What do I want them to get from it? Not just for it to taste delicious, but for it to be nutritious and good for them. So that's how I find meaning in the mundane of a potato. In the comments, tell me, how do you find meaning in your mundane? Rowie says, when I grew up, we lived on potatoes, potato pie, potato bake. It's not a meal without potato in it. Cook for me with love, says Ian. You cheeky. Monday moment. Love it. Sounds yummy. What's that? Cavan. Yes, my dad used to make it. What is it? I just had Spanish tortilla. This meaning vegan, using chickpea flour with the potatoes. And it was bloody gorgeous with some caramelized onions. John, I'm there. I'm with you. That sounds great. Crazy Bunny has a fridge full of homegrown potatoes. How is this possible? Peter says you can't beat homegrown vegetables. No, you can't. It's amazing. I love them. Chris tried growing potatoes two years ago, planted 12, harvested 12. Oh, Maria says, stop raining here, blue skies. Potatoes bravas for me. Ooh, I like dauphinoise. That's one of my favorites, right? Potatoes in cream and garlic. Oh, and you can do that as a vegan or vegetarian, because there are kind of cream alternatives now. So it is possible. On a plane. Oh, the potato famine, my love. The Irish died from lack of potatoes. Stephen, I love mashed potato. It's one of my favorite comfort foods. So you see what I mean about finding meaning in the mundane. Look how inspired we are. And the thing is also, the other thing is it reminds you of things. My mum used to make a lot of potato meals as well, Irish, Welsh descent. And Soul Sound said Sally made 4 pots of apple sauce with apples from the garden. A soup with navets. What's navets? See, that's what I'm talking about. Exotic vegetables, carrots and potatoes, a coleslaw, all from our garden. And every cut of knife was done with love and gratitude. Oh, it was. Shalini, I love a bit of mash. I love a bit of mash. Oh, roasties once a year. What? Emma has roasties once a year. That's a potato. Emma, I would not survive. Oh, making cashew cream is so easy and delicious. So can blend instant creamy sauce. John, this sounds fantastic. It looks like I'm going to have to get some recipes off of you. Um, Shug is being harangued by a Jack Russell. He keeps licking the back of my hand because he knows it annoys me, lol. Find meaning in the mundane of that, Shug. Find meaning. And I think it is important to find meaning in the mundane. Otherwise, life just becomes one long plod, doesn't it? And we're so much better than that. Crafty Kim, cost too much to fire up the electric oven just to cook jackets. A luxury now on Sundays. It's terrible, isn't it? I tell you what, though, I love a good barbie because you just throw the jacket potato into the fire with the foil around it. Somebody's now going to comment about how awful and dangerous that all is. And we are up to 3,000 views, people. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I truly appreciate you. Anne is hungry now. Ah, potatoes affect Pauline's migraine. Not good. Yes, Brett, carbs. With this weather, we need a big bowl of caul. What the hell is caul? You can't have a Sunday roast without roast potatoes, says Mikey B. Harrods potatoes. I'm hungry. Everybody's hungry now. Listen, when I said find meaning Monday, it doesn't have to be about potato. That was literally because I do enjoy making potato dishes. So that was like something that I do on a regular basis that can be mundane. Right, people. My animals are like, turn off the TV. 1 minute, my darlings. Open fire baked spuds are the best. Yes, says Pandora. Oh, air fryer jacket potatoes? Really? Does that work? Akamtix, how do I pronounce your name? I cook my jackets in a Rimoska. These people are throwing stuff at me that I don't even know exist. I love it. Making me hungry. Off to get an egg, says Lat. Call is Welsh. Yeah, beats and tapes. You're trying to throw me with my ancestry. Mikey B, did his tunnels led to the Playboy Mansion? I heard that. No, it's not lunchtime yet, people. It is 4 minutes past 11 and I am going to leave here. We are now on 3,017 views and I love each and every one of you for making that possible. Thank you for being here. As I say, I will be in Bath on Sunday for the premiere of Andy Wakefield's movie. I will be back again on Monday. I want to leave you with a quote because that's what I do around here. It's from Rufus Wainwright. And he said, I like to make the mundane fabulous whenever I can. And me too. Listen, lovely people, beautiful people in the comments, all you wonderful people, everybody, as I said at the start of the show, everybody who contributes to this show in any way you can, you're part of this team. You are part of the growth of this channel. You are family. We are family. Have a beautiful weekend. I will see you on Monday. Take excellent care of yourself. And of course, as always, thank you to my wonderful mods. Aren't they great? Love you all, everybody. Take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.